Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're here, because you're trying to learn a new language, right?
Mhm.
Let's be honest. It can feel like you're never going to get there. Like you're just drowning in vocab,
Right.
wrestling with grammar,
Yep.
and like you're wondering, is any of this actually sinking in?
It's a really common feeling.
Is it really?
But the fascinating thing is that even when you feel like that, like you're just treading water,
Yeah.
your brain, it's actually working behind the scenes.
Really?
You might not see it, but every time you see a new word or phrase, no matter how quick it is,
Hmm.
it leaves a mark. It's kind of like planting seeds.
Yeah.
You don't see the sprout right away,
Right.
but if you're consistently nurturing them,
Yeah.
something incredible, it starts to grow.
Okay, so are you saying there's hope for those of us who feel like we're just constantly forgetting new words?
Absolutely.
Real.
Like our brains are leaky sieves or something. There's this idea called the percent rule, and it basically says that each time you see a new word, your brain is absorbing a little bit of it.
Okay.
It's like building a mosaic. Each time you see it, it's like a tiny tile,
Yeah.
and eventually all those tiles, they come together to make a complete picture.
I see. I'm starting to get the picture here,
Yep.
but I'm still a little bit stuck on the fact that I see a word a couple times, but then the next day, poof, it's gone.
Yeah.
How do I bridge that gap
Right.
between seeing it and actually remembering it?
That's where spaced repetition comes in.
Okay.
It's a learning technique that takes advantage of how our brains naturally forget and relearn stuff.
Okay.
So you basically look at the material again and again, but at longer and longer intervals.
Right.
And it helps make those memories stick.
So instead of me just cramming a ton of words and hoping I remember them,
Yeah,
I should be spacing it out more.
exactly. It's like working out a muscle, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect to get ripped by just doing one workout and then never going back to the gym.
Right.
It's the same with language learning. Consistent practice, spaced out. That's the key.
So I'm thinking about all those times where I felt discouraged,
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't remember a word I had just learned a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Maybe I was being too hard on myself, expecting to be fluent right away.
It's a common trap.
Is it?
We want to see results immediately.
Yeah.
But learning a language, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
It's about building up those connections in your brain
Yeah.
gradually.
Okay, so how do we actually put this spaced repetition magic into practice?
Right.
Like in our daily routines?
Yeah.
Are there any tools or things that can help us with this?
Absolutely. There are a lot of great resources out there that use spaced repetition to help you learn.
Right.
One of them is called sciencebasedlearning.com.
Sciencebasedlearning.com. Tell me more.
It's specifically designed to optimize your learning.
All right.
Using spaced repetition, you can make your own lists of words or generate lists from books you're reading.
Oh, wow.
It's really well organized and super easy to use, so it's perfect for anyone learning a new language.
So it's like having a personal tutor who knows exactly when to test you on the words you're forgetting.
Exactly. You can just focus on the learning.
That's awesome.
It also keeps track of your progress
Okay.
and adjusts to what you're good at and what you need to work on, so you're always studying the right stuff at the right time.
That's really cool.
Hmm.
But even with all that, I think it's still easy to feel overwhelmed when you're first starting out.
Yeah.
How can we avoid getting discouraged and stay motivated?
One of the best things you can do is to change how you think about success.
What do you mean?
It's not about memorizing every word right away or speaking perfectly from day one.
Right.
It's more about the journey.
So we should be focusing on the small wins then.
Exactly.
Like understanding a sentence I wouldn't have before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or using a new word in a conversation, even if it's not perfect. Celebrating those little victories, it can really keep you motivated and make the whole process more enjoyable.
I love that. So instead of getting bummed out when we stumble, we should just keep going,
Right.
one step at a time.
Exactly. And remember, you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
There are so many incredible tools and resources out there, like sciencebasedlearning.com, to help you every step of the way.
It's really amazing how technology can help us learn. This
Yeah.
is giving me a whole new appreciation for the power of combining science and strategy when it comes to learning. But I want to know more about how this spaced repetition thing actually works in our brains.
Right.
What's going on up there when we're using it?
So basically, when we learn something new, our brains make these connections between neurons called synapses.
Okay.
And those connections, they get stronger the more we use them.
So it's like the more we see a new word or concept,
Yeah.
the stronger that pathway in our brain becomes.
Exactly. It's like a path in the woods. The more you walk on it,
Right.
the more defined it becomes. Yeah.
But if we don't go back to that information,
Uh-huh.
those connections get weaker, and the path, it starts to disappear.
Oh,
And
right.
that's where spaced repetition comes in handy.
I see.
By timing those review sessions just right, we're basically rewalking those paths and making them stronger.
That makes me think about all those times I crammed for a test and then forgot everything a week later.
Right.
It's like I built a flimsy bridge and it just collapsed.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
Cramming, it's like building a weak bridge,
Yeah.
but spaced repetition,
Yeah.
that's like building a solid, long-lasting bridge.
Okay. That makes sense. But besides just vocab, how can we use this for other parts of language learning,
Right.
like grammar or pronunciation?
Great question.
Yeah.
Spaced repetition isn't just for vocab. You can use it for any information.
Really?
Yeah, like grammar rules, verb conjugations,
Huh.
even those tricky pronunciation sounds.
So instead of just reading grammar rules,
Right.
I could make flashcards or use that sciencebasedlearning.com.
To quiz myself and really get it down.
Yes. By actively recalling the information,
Yeah.
you're forcing your brain to work, which makes those connections stronger.
Wow, I'm realizing I've been learning all wrong. I've been focusing too much on just taking in the information,
Yeah, it's a common mistake.
but not on actually remembering it.
It's about the quality of your practice, not the quantity.
This is making me think about other areas in my life where I could use this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about languages. It's about learning how to learn.
Absolutely. The principles of spaced repetition,
Yeah.
they're universal. You can apply them to anything.
Music, math, sports, anything.
Anything you want to learn. Once you understand how your brain learns, you can unlock your potential.
This is so cool. It's like we've been given a secret map to our own minds.
And the journey's just getting started. The more we learn about how we learn,
Yeah.
the more we realize how much we can actually achieve.
This deep dive has been incredible. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on learning, not just for languages, but for everything.
That's great to hear.
I'm excited to try out all these new tools and techniques. But before we wrap up, I feel like there's even more to explore, What other strategies can we use to really make those gains stick?
Yeah, definitely. There are a ton of other strategies you can use to really boost your learning.
Like what?
Have you heard of interleaving?
Interleaving.
It's basically mixing up different subjects or topics while you're studying.
So instead of spending an hour on one grammar concept, I'd switch back and forth between grammar, vocab, maybe even some listening practice.
Exactly. By changing things up, you're making your brain work harder to remember the information.
So it actually helps you remember better.
Yeah, in the long run, it makes those memories stronger.
That's interesting. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
It is, but it works. It's like cross-training for your brain. You're using different mental muscles.
I like that analogy. I tend to stick to one subject at a time,
Yeah.
Maybe I should mix it up more.
I think it's worth trying. See what works for you. And there's also active recall, which we talked about a bit earlier.
Oh, right, like testing myself with flashcards.
Exactly. Or trying to explain a concept without looking at your notes.
So basically, making my brain work for it.
Yeah, that's the key.
Wow, this is eye-opening. I'm realizing how much I can improve my learning just by changing how I approach it.
It's amazing, isn't it? These techniques can really make a difference.
And the best part is they work for anything, right? Not just languages.
Right. It's all about understanding how your brain learns best.
This deep dive has been so insightful. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of learning. I'm excited to put all of this into practice.
That's great. Remember, learning should be a fun adventure.
Well said. Thanks for joining us today and sharing your expertise.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, if you're feeling inspired to step up your language learning game, or any other learning for that matter, keep in mind what we talked about today: spaced repetition, interleaving, active recall. And don't forget to check out resources like sciencebasedlearning.com. It can really help you along the way.
Happy learning, everyone.